In conclusion, Pennsylvania legislators have to stop marginalizing the victims and start memorializing them.
Thank you, Arthur. Thank you.
Thank you, Arthur. And serial rapists, as you know, rape across the United States, across the 50 states, including Bill Cosby. So we're hoping that other states will follow these laws and open up the statute of limitations so that people can pursue justice. Next, we have an advocate, artist, activist, Bird Milliken. If you guys followed the Cosby trials, first, second, and sentencing hearing, there was one lone activist who was there with bubbles every day, blowing bubbles and protesting in support of us Cosby survivors. You might have seen her with an effigy of Bill Cosby. She is Bird Milliken, wonderful advocate. And I tell you that advocacy is so important as our bystanders, because we survivors would not be able to speak out were it not for the advocates, were it not for the media, who are the true pillars of justice, and were it not for the advocates like Bird Milliken.
Yes, Bird!
Thank you! Thank you all! Thank you! I want to thank everybody who's meeting us here today in support of the survivors of Bill Cosby, but not just those survivors, but all survivors of sexual assault. I want to thank those who came today to show up in support. That means the Weinstein survivors, the clergy survivors, the survivors from different walks, and guess what? We are walking together to get things done. For instance, we've got to change the laws. We've got to change the laws. The outrage you feel about Bill Cosby, do something about it. Let's change the laws. We need to, number one, we need to define consent. We have to define consent. If it is not defined, how are you going to prosecute somebody for it? You got to know what it is. To understand the boundaries, what is consent? We've got to define it. Contact your legislators and let them know. We need certain words put into law. That consent is freely given, knowledgeable, and informed agreement. Once again, what is consent? Consent is freely given, knowledgeable, and informed agreement. We need to do that. Number two, the statute of limitations on rape and sexual assault need to be abolished nationally. We need to get rid of the statute of limitations against rape and sexual assault. There's no reason for it. Who are we protecting? Without evidence, you don't got to worry about it. You don't have to worry about it. This doesn't impact you if you're not raping people and sexually assaulting them. If you are, you need to be accountable, no matter when it comes out. End rape SOL, the statute of limitations. We got to change the laws. We need to work together, all groups. I want to thank those who came out today to work with us, to mobilize. Take your angst, take your anger, and let's do something with it. Let's change the laws that enable these crimes against our sisters and brothers. We deserve better, and our laws need to protect us, not the offenders. Keep rising up, y'all. Again, contact your legislators to find consent and tell them you also want to abolish the statute of limitations on rape and sexual assault. Represent. Woo! Thank you. My name is Bird, B-I-R-D. Last name Milliken, M-I-L-L-I-K-E-N. I have a Facebook page where I represent the survivors of Bill Cosby. It's called We Support the Survivors of Bill Cosby. I also am working with a group called the Consent Awareness Network. Google us, get online. We want to support you. You got us. Guess what? We got you too. We believe you. We got your back. Let's work together. Rise up, y'all. Woo!
Okay, and lastly, we're going to hear from Joyce Short, who's another advocate, because she can talk about the work that she's doing with consent laws. And then after Joyce, we can have an open mic. Okay, Joyce.
All right, Joyce.
And gentlemen.
Yell it.
Okay. You just talk into it.
Can y'all hear me?
Scream it.
I'm not as loud as Bird, but I'm going to try. Okay. So folks, we all recognize that our justice system is broken. We recognize it big time. And we can thank God for Me Too and Time's Up because they've raised awareness about the sexual assault problem. But raising awareness alone doesn't solve the problem. We need a solution. And defining consent properly in our laws is that solution. Consent is not a mystery. It's freely given, knowledgeable, and informed agreement.
What is it?
Freely given, knowledgeable, and informed agreement. Model Penal Code tells us so. Nuremberg Code tells us so. General Data Protection Regulation tells us so. But somehow, when we go to process sexual assault predators, our brains go into the murky zone and we don't recognize what consent is. Why is that? Folks, if the laws of Pennsylvania recognized what consent was when Cosby preyed on Andrea Constand and everybody else, they would have been able to go to the police and they would have gotten action that held